Welcome back. All right, it is Wednesday, and every second Wednesday, I do a panic index. I have a lot to explain, the magnets on the board, what they all mean. Also, why would I be wearing a Movies jersey, which is, of course, the restaurant chain and the Clerks movies. And first off, it's because I think it's kind of a fun jersey. I got it on they had a flash sale on geeky jerseys on it. So I was like, yeah, for $50, I'll grab it. And so, yeah, that was a pretty good investment. I also have it in purple. But the yellow one's it's a choice. It's an interesting choice, isn't it? But anyways, I'm also wearing my John Cena hat in honor of his last time is now tour, plus for full transparency. So starting off at the top of the board, the happiness magnet is back. So this is for your maximum amount of happiness. The second row is for still pretty darn happy. And where I find it funny is when people get mad, they're on the second row and the first row. That's funny. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars on the board to represent kind of in the middle, not necessarily overly happy, not necessarily panicked either. Jaguars takes the place, of course, of I've had the Jets magnet on the board the last couple, the New York Jets, and there were some New York Jets fans that weren't all that happy. And since they're now 2-8, so they did get a win, I took the Jets off the board. At the bottom of the board, where we have teams that maybe the playoffs are just out of reach for them, and they're probably okay with that because they're kind of in a rebuild/retool situation, I have got the Gauntlet of Thanos, because he snaps out half of everything with snap of the fingers. So the panic magnet's back on the board as well. So your standard panic look. And with all of that description and all of that explanation out of the way, let us go ahead and jump in. So I've grabbed these magnets in a random order. Let me randomize them again. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle. I'm going to shuffle. This is where I'd ask somebody to cut it, but my wife is currently out, so she can't. So we'll start things off with San Jose. I think with how things are going with the San Jose Sharks, I don't know if this is a first, but it feels like it is a first that the San Jose Sharks are at the top of the board. It doesn't matter if they make the playoffs. The fact that they've taken that next step as a team and they're playing well and they're getting wins, things are exciting. Celebrini is better than advertised. So, yeah, things are going pretty well with the San Jose Sharks. Well enough that, yeah, I think they belong at the top of the board. Vegas. Vegas, I'm going to put them in the middle. I don't think there's necessarily panic yet. And I did the video on Vegas a couple days ago. I think for the Vegas Golden Knights, they'll figure this out. They'll get healthier. Once Stone's back, I figure they go on a winning streak. But at this point in time, we'll see. Vegas Golden Knights, I'm going to put them right in the middle because I'm going to chicken out. The Islanders. I think Islanders fans got to be pretty happy. I'm not going to put them at the top right now, but I think the fact that they're above the playoff line, they're playing well. And Patrick Roy, some spirit from Patrick Roy. I did mention in the comments today, but I'll mention it here. I can't believe that microphone stayed on. I watched the Dallas broadcast and I was like, and at first that it was players yelling back and forth. I'm like, oh no, that's just Patrick Roy. Wow. But yeah, so he's if your kids were watching, they may have learned some new words. But yeah, the New York Islanders, I'll put them in the second row, not the top row. Tampa, I feel like Tampa belongs in the same spot. Now, Tampa, I think they're 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're playing well. Still got to be some injury concern there, just minor concerns, just minor quibbles. There was that loss against the New York Rangers, which was alarming over the last 7 days. So I'm not going to put them at the top, but I'm not going to put them down in the middle either. Detroit, feels like Detroit belongs in that row too, doesn't it? Detroit's had their fallbacks here and there, but they're first in the division right now, which is also a measure of Montreal having some struggles. So Montreal has some struggles, it opens a door, and Detroit kicks it in, and they're first in the division right now. I don't know how long that's going to last, but it is fun to see Detroit first in the division. I don't remember the last time that happened this late in the season. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it hasn't happened the whole time this channel's been in existence. Minnesota, I'm going to put Minnesota in the middle. Minnesota's done better over the last couple of weeks. They're still not above the playoff line. So there's still some work to be done with the Minnesota Wild as well. They've eked out some wins here and there. They're definitely getting great goaltending from Wallstead. Wallstead is definitely helping with the kind of goaltending he's been providing. So I'll put Minnesota in the middle. If they keep trending this way, they'll be higher up the next time out when I do this. Washington, middle. I kind of want to put Washington in the panic, but it's like I said with Washington. I still think they're going to be okay. They've won 3 of their last 10 though. Maybe it's just because Brandon Carberry has them playing their system. Spencer Carberry. I don't know who Brandon Carberry is. No idea. I think I got Brandon Convery mixed up with. You get so many hockey names in your mind, it happens. Spencer Carberry. Do I have too much faith in Carberry and that's why I'm putting them in the middle, or should they be in that panic row? This is the thing. I don't really pre-plan this. So Washington. There's Caps fans right now probably saying panic and others saying it's fine, and so I'll move them. So some people won't be happy, but I'll put Washington there. Florida. You know what? With the fact that Florida is playing as iffy at times as they are, I'm going to put Florida on the second row. I kind of tempted to put them in the first, but not until Tkachuk is back. Once Tkachuk comes back, I figure Florida goes on a winning streak. But they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. So Florida's played well enough over their last 10 games. And while they're still below the playoff line, they're not very far below it. And, yeah. Columbus. Columbus is going in the middle. Columbus at times looks great. At times they don't. Struggle holding leads here and there. I'm just going to put Columbus in the middle. We'll see how things go for them going forward. But at this point in time, like last night, they lose against Winnipeg 5-2, but it's Winnipeg. So losing against the Jets isn't a big deal. Toronto. And bam. Seeing a panel on TSN, I think it was the TSN, no, it was Sportsnet, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Sportsnet, where they were talking about, does Toronto miss the playoffs? I've also seen, if this team's out of the playoffs around trade deadline, they need to sell. Should everybody be available? I don't know how rational some of these takes are, to be honest. Like, I understand Toronto's been eliminated early in the playoffs every year since 2016. I understand that frustration. But I kind of feel like what we're talking about here is throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and I'd rather not see the Leafs do that. There are definitely some issues with the roster, but I don't think it needs to be like completely blown up. Even if they find themselves out of the playoffs around trade deadline, the concern is they don't have their own first round draft pick in 2026. That's the concern. But yeah, definitely panic for Toronto. St. Louis, I feel like. So coming into this season, there was an expectation on the Blues. And they have not lived up to that expectation. So, panic or the Thanos glove? They're getting enough points, and the West still looks kind of wide open. Kind of. Sort of. So I'm going to put them next to the panic, because if they fix this quickly, they can absolutely get themselves above 500 and bulldoze their way into the playoffs. They have the right coach behind the bench to go on that kind of a winning streak. Montgomery coach teams do go on those kinds of streaks, but it's been the wrong kind of streak for St. Louis this season, so I'll put them at panic. Vancouver's always panicked, so, and in this case, I understand. A lot of injuries to key players, a lot of concern about, what's going to happen with Quinn Hughes, which I just mentioned here and there in certain videos as well, but yeah, Vancouver, I understand the panic. I'm not going to say that I'm panicked, because if you watch the video I did on the Canucks, I'm not. I'm just resigned. I've been resigned since, hearing going into the summer they were looking for a second-line center, and my reaction being, everybody's going to be looking for a second-line center. If you can get an upgrade down the middle, everybody's looking to do that, which is not new in hockey. I have seen that being used as an argument against expansion. I remember teams looking for centers back in the 80s when we had 21 teams. So it's part and parcel of how things work in the NHL. Buffalo. I mean, I don't think there's any expectations on the Buffalo Sabres. I think if the Sabres go on some sort of a winning streak and they make the playoffs, they'll be shock more than anything else. I need the shock llama for that, if that happens. And they'd have their own designation on the board, shock llama Buffalo, and I just put it up there at the start. So I'm saying it now. We'll see if I remember if that happens. And I hope it does. I would love to see Buffalo playing games that mean something late in the season and finish above the playoff line. That would be fantastic, but I don't think it happens. Nashville. Yeah, Nashville goes down here as well. The Nashville Predators, I think while their general manager, Barry Trotz, was talking during the summer about them, bouncing back and surprising people, I I didn't see moves being made by Nashville, which would indicate that the general manager had a lot of faith in them necessarily bouncing back, in that he wasn't dealing any kind of futures to bring anybody in to shore things up. He just kind of left things the same with the idea that, hey, if they bounce back, great, and if they don't, that's okay too. Then you're adding more and more prospects to the organization. Calgary, the Flames have been in a rebuild for a while. The funny thing is, because Calgary overachieved last year and almost made the playoffs, I do think there's a little bit of overreaction from people about the Flames right now, like anybody speculating on a change behind the bench or any kind of organizational changes. I think the reality is this team overachieved last year. I don't think management had plans to make the playoffs. I think they would have been happy if they made the playoffs because, I mean, who doesn't want to make the playoffs? But they're still in this rebuild, retool that they were last year. The moves made last year would tell you this was a team that was well aware of what they needed to do going forward. So I don't think there's any panic in Calgary. I think people understand what this team's going through and that this is part of the process, as GMs put it. Colorado goes up here. I don't think I need to explain a whole lot other than they've only lost one of their last 186 regular season games. They are the greatest team in the history of the National Hockey League. You're not allowed to question it. That's Colorado. That's how it is. New Jersey, I'm gonna put New Jersey. Oh, so with the Jack Hughes injury, and they're 5-4-1 in their last 10. Does New Jersey go on the second line or the third line? It feels like right now for where the team is at, and again with Hughes out of the lineup, it just changes their attack quite a bit. So I'm gonna put them on that third line rather than the second line. Although they're still tied for first in the division, so this may be a complete overreaction, but I'm going to do that. The Ducks, things are pretty good in Anaheim. When they're playing at home, they're excellent. When they're on the road, they're mediocre, but that's fine. They're not a team that we're expected to be as good as they've been. And if they end up finishing first in the division, that will shock everybody, including me. So the Shock Llama might need two logos next to it if that, in fact, ends up being the case. Dallas, I know Dallas lost last night. I don't think there's any sort of panic in Dallas. I think Dallas is playing well. Last night's loss, I think it's just the Islanders they're playing pretty well right now. So I really saw that more as the Islanders playing their game. They didn't get out of their game. And yeah, so I didn't see that as necessarily a bad thing for Dallas. More than I saw it as just it was a really strong road game being played by the Islanders. Carolina, I think considering all the injuries Carolina's had and just how well they've played, I think that Carolina belongs at the top. So why would they have the same record as New Jersey and be 2 rows different? Because it feels like New Jersey at this point, 5-4-1 in their last 10, have dropped off a bit. I think Carolina in their last 10 are 7-3 or 6-3-1, 7-3, I think. Could be 6-3-1. But either way, it does feel like with Carolina, things are coming into focus. Ehlers is playing really well over the last few weeks. And while there's injuries on that blue line, they are able to fill guys in there. And those guys who fill in do pretty well while they're standing in the lineup and taking spots from really some pretty good defensemen that are out of the lineup for Carolina. Montreal, the recent goings on with Montreal, I'm going to put them in the middle. The Montreal Canadiens are currently third in the division, and I do think there is some reason for concern around Montreal. They're still a good team. I think they still probably end up in the playoffs, but there are definitely some concerns. And teams do peak early in the season. You'll have a valley in 1 month, and then you might have another peak the next. So it's definitely early enough in the season that we won't necessarily be, concerned. But it is something to keep an eye on with the Montreal Canadiens. Boston, I don't have any level of concern with Boston necessarily, but I'm not putting them on the top row. Boston's got wins through some theft by Swayman and some really good coaching by Marco Sturm. I still don't know that Boston necessarily has that top end talent offensively outside of Geeky and Pasternak. I don't know that they have enough guys to keep this up, but it's been fun to watch. It's been kind of a shocking year for me as a Boston fan, watching what the Bruins have been able to do. Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got to still be pretty happy, I would think. So I'm going to put them on the second row as well. Um, I mean, some mild concerns with Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh peaked a few weeks back too, and they've kind of fallen back a little bit. We'll see how they are coming out of that trip overseas, and if they struggle in their games back in North America. We have seen that in times past where teams go over to the Global Series, and then the first couple of weeks after they come back, their record's kind of spotty. So we'll see how Pittsburgh does, but they did get a split in the Global Series, which is kind of all you can ask for. Winnipeg. I mean, is there concern in Winnipeg? Maybe a bit. I don't think Winnipeg belongs down here. They're 6-5 in their last 11. Not a fantastic record over their last 11. They're still third in the division. They're third in what I think is the toughest division right now if you just look at the top threes. I mean, the Metro's pretty good too, but I think I would take the Central. Winnipeg's playing really, really well. And I think they're a little bit better than that 6-5 record over their last 11. But it's going to be an interesting run the rest of the way because Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg, this could be quite the run. And then whoever ends up being 2-3 in that division, that first round series could just be an absolute nightmare. Just 7 games, probably a lot of fighting, probably high scoring one game. The next one's a 1-0 score, some long overtimes. Central's going to be a lot of fun when you get to the playoffs. Utah, they got 2 wins in their last 10. I'm putting them next to Panic. I do think that Utah's got some issues. I do need to do a video on the Utah Mammoth. I've seen that comment on the channel, and I did think that myself last night. In fact, I said out loud during that game against San Jose, during the second period, towards the end of the second period, I mumbled aloud, what happened to Utah? Utah was so fun to watch. They were so exciting, and they were so wide. I think the NHL's defense has got a lot better than where it was at the start of the year, which is normally the progression of things. We didn't see that so much last year, but it does feel like defenses have clamped down, and it's really choked off that offense that the Utah Mammoth have going for them. So they're just going to have to find new ways to create that offense, I guess. But if you're panicked with Utah, I'm kind of right there with you. Chicago, there is no reason for Chicago to be anywhere other than the top. The Chicago Blackhawks are, I still think they're ahead of schedule. It is always interesting, isn't it, how a team will be bad and then all of a sudden they're good. Done. All right, bad team's gone. Oh, that bad team, that was us 6 months ago. Now we're a pretty good team. And that's where we're at with Chicago. And last night too, Bedard showing a little bit of fight, a little bit of attitude, a little bit of willingness to drop the mitts if he needs to. And that little bit of snarl in his game definitely helps. And I think that also shows some more confidence for Bedard in his game than where it was, say, last year. Last year, I think, was generally miserable for Bedard until towards the end of that season. This year, he looks a lot more dialed in. Looks like he's having a lot more fun. That's bad news for the rest of the league. The LA Kings, it depends where they're playing. If they're playing at home, not great. If they're playing on the road, pretty darn good. They are sitting, third in the division right now? I'm going to put LA in the middle. Because if you're a Kings fan, you can find reasons right now to say, nope, they belong in the top row. But also if you're a Kings fan, you can find reasons to put them here. I'm going to put them here. Based on what I've seen, I think the Kings are a pretty good team that may very well make the playoffs in the end. But I do think there's some reason for concern there. So I have them in the middle. It's not an insult where I put them. It's just how I see things. Ottawa. Things are going to get better for Ottawa once we see the return of Brady Tkachuk, which could be next week. And so the Ottawa Senators, I'm going to put them in the middle 2 weeks from now once they have Tkachuk back. And if they have some more wins under their belt as well, Ottawa may be towards the top of the board. New York Rangers, well, they lost last night, but that was at the Fortress in Vegas, so not necessarily any reason for concern. But that home record, they have to be next to Panic, don't they? That home record is it's atrocious. They just don't look great. And then last night, too, something I noticed with them in Vegas is that difficulty creating offense. That's been happening at home. Is it starting to creep into their road game as well? Are they starting to have that crisis of confidence on the road where they got 2 goals in Vegas last night? So maybe it is something to keep an eye on, because if some of the lack of confidence they have at home starts to eat into their road record, that could lead to a really, really tough next 10 to 20 games for the New York Rangers. The Oilers, they're below the playoff line. How are they below the playoff line? But they're not far enough below the playoff line to be here. Do they belong in panic as well? Is that where we're at? Because the Oilers belong in panic? They got beat by Buffalo, right? But they beat Carolina. I'm going to chicken out. Yeah, I'm going to chicken out. I'm going to put them right in the middle. A lot of teams middle and up. I'm trying to not put them down here, but I feel like this is a lot of teams that I'm putting in panic right now. So kind of panicking guy right now, I guess. It's weird. I take meds so I don't feel so panicked. But the Oilers right in the middle of the board. So Jaguars have some company. And for the Oilers, there's definitely some reason to be optimistic that things will get better, because they normally do. But like I said in the video I did yesterday, the underlying numbers aren't fantastic for the Oilers right now. We got two more teams left. Seattle. I still think Seattle's really achieved more this year than what was expected of them to this point. So I'm going to put Seattle in the second row, not the top row. But yeah, Seattle, it's been an interesting year for the Seattle Kraken. And they're getting enough points. They're getting enough points to stay in the hunt and potentially make the playoffs. And that is maybe a little bit better than what people expected. So Philadelphia's last. I feel like Philadelphia belongs in that second row as well. Philadelphia was supposed to be one of the worst teams in the East, and they're not. They're just not. They're not necessarily the most skilled, but like I said, before the season started, Tocchet has ways of getting wins from teams when he takes over, and I feel like that's part of what we're seeing with Philadelphia. So I'm going to put him in the second row. I feel like that's the right place for them right now. But 6 teams in panic. Wow. And only 3 teams that I look at and say, yeah, it's probably not their year when it comes to playoffs, and they probably realize that. And I'm sure that Buffalo players wouldn't say it. Nashville and Calgary players I don't think would necessarily say it either, but they'd be thinking it. So we'll see how things go from here. But yeah, so I've got 6 in the top row and 6 in panic. I think that's pretty good balance, and a bunch of teams in between. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always, keeping in mind that the panic index is always just sort of a fun thing I do. Not necessarily meant to be taken like seriously and taken to heart. But it is fun to look at. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.